Hello and welcome to the Leading with Lean podcast. My name's Philip Holt, author of Leading with Lean, The Simplicity of Lean, and Leading Lean by Living Lean. And in this podcast, I narrate all three of my books, chapter by chapter, in which I share with you my over 30 years of experience as a lean leader across many companies globally. The Simplicity of Lean, Chapter 2, Daily Management. What is daily management? The lean leader's mission in installing lean thinking within the organization's culture is focused on driving the behavioral change of the organization, encouraging, reinforcing, and requiring that the team members and the leadership consistently repeat the new skills that they have been taught. They consistently remind themselves and their colleagues of the principles of a lean thinking organization until this behavior becomes a mindset, a way of thinking, and ultimately a significant part of the culture of the organization. And in the book, what you'll see is my culture cycle, where it shows that culture impacts behavior, which impacts mindset, which then impacts culture and reinforces it. So if we can intervene at the behavioral level, we can start to change the mindset and ultimately the culture of the organization. This behavioral intervention point is critical, very much practically based, and contrasts with a more common approach of mindset training. In that approach, team members are trained in the mindset desired by the organization, possibly with the behavior discussed and described, but without practical reinforcement on an ongoing and consistent basis. The usual result of that approach is people well versed in the terminology of the principles, mindsets, and behavior required, but without well-practiced application of them. This will not result in the culture change required by the organisation, although it will create a cottage industry of culture change professionals. The installation of daily management is one of the most effective levers for change and is our starting point in the simplicity model. It's an effective way of ensuring that the team members work together to manage the business as usual in a collaborative way. Successful companies create a strong problem-solving culture, which we'll face in Chapter 4. And daily management promotes it by ensuring that the most important elements of performance are clear to the team and that performance issues are identified as early as possible. And again, in the book, you'll see another illustration, this time showing the difference from top management to middle management to first level manager to frontline team member in terms of the amount of time they spend on daily management, Kaizen, and breakthrough. With frontline team members spending the majority of their time on daily management and some time on Kaizen, first level managers and supervisors spending about 70% of the time on daily management, about 20% on Kaizen, and about 10% on breakthrough activity. Middle managers spending about 40 to 50% of their time on daily management, about 10% on Kaizen, and the rest on breakthrough activity. And then top management should, in theory at least, spend around 60 to 70% of their time on breakthrough activity, about 10% on Kaizen, and the remainder on daily management. But what we'll see as we go through the book is that is what we ideally want to achieve, but many organizations don't yet achieve this. And with the simplicity of lean, we can help your organization to break through to that ideal situation. Later in the book, I cover other elements of the simplicity model, such as Hoshinkanri and Kaizen, models that require a significant investment of time by the leader. However, most leaders are already too busy due to a constant firefighting of the day-to-day business as usual. Effective daily management frees up the time to spend on these other lean methods, which in turn makes the daily management more effective, a self-perpetuating virtuous cycle. In Chapter 5, I will cover visual management, a skill upon which daily management relies heavily, the ability to read performance quickly through effective visualization. Daily management is team-based, visual, and as the name suggests, has a regular cadence, with daily being the preferred interval. The focus is on the most critical metrics, and when they're off track, quickly solving the cause to get back on track. In many organisations, performance review meetings are on a less frequent basis, weekly or perhaps even monthly. They involve team members explaining why targets were not met, and often providing a good explanation for why the target was missed. There is a lot of hope involved, as the team tells itself that it missed the targets but that the next period will be back on track. This isn't a criticism of people under these circumstances, and if I'm honest with myself, I've also done this. Feeling inclined to explain to a senior or colleagues why my team or I didn't meet targets and assuring them that we will do so in the next period. This is perhaps without really knowing what will be different, other than convincing myself that I will work much harder to attain the result, even though the team and I have already done our best. Like most elements of the simplicity of lean, the important thing about dealing with this problem isn't about dealing with the behavioural symptoms, telling people that what they're doing is wrong, but rather by ensuring that we create the environment and provide the tools and training to remove the need to behave in what is a very human manner. Through the implementation of daily management, what we provide are leading metrics that provide the team with indicators of performance and the tools and skills to problem solve before the failure of the lagging indicators occurs. The leaders provide the empowerment which requires both giving authority to the team and setting the level of expectation on them to deliver, which allows the team to manage their performance effectively. Essentially, it's about short interval control. Simply put, that means we know as early as possible when there is a problem. By doing so, we can avoid individuals or teams burying their heads in the sand in the hope of making up for short-term underperformance. That approach is disingenuous, although it is a natural response, and the short interval control that we instill through daily management ensures that there is nowhere to hide. Nevertheless, as you will hopefully have realised by now, it's not intended to expose people to blame, but rather to help them and the team to face up to problems whilst they are small enough to quickly resolve. This avoids the accumulation of larger problems later and provides the leadership with more opportunity to coach the teams and to delegate activities. The COM cell. The communication cell, COM cell, sometimes referred to as the Daily Management Board, or DMB, is simplistic in its nature. However, the inherent difficulty of the COM cell is in the behavioural change that it requires from the leader and the team members. The layout is very straightforward. There are 3 sections: people, performance, and continuous improvement. And in the book, you'll see a graphic of a typical communication cell layout. First item, people. The people section is the area of the COM cell that, as the name suggests, deals with the people concerns. It starts with safety, and in the book you'll see an illustration of a safety cross. The safety cross is a visual and simple method of recording, on a daily basis, any issues that occur and empowering the team to resolve them as their number one priority. Safety first. Where no issues occur, the team can be proud of having recorded a safe day. However, in case of a near miss, whereby an accident might potentially have occurred, a minor incident, or a serious accident, the incident must be fully investigated to root cause and an effective countermeasure implemented. In fact, in a lean thinking organisation, near misses will be considered extremely serious and too close for comfort. Behavioural-based safety training will be implemented and observations of non-compliance noted by the team members, as addressing behaviour that results in unsafe acts will reduce the probability of actual injuries. This approach is based upon the Heinrich principle of safety in a workplace. For every accident that causes a major injury, there are 29 accidents that cause minor injuries and 300 accidents that cause no injuries, a near miss. In a lean organisation, the focus is therefore at the even earlier level of safety, that of the potential safety issue, encouraging and expecting team members to be active in their eradication. By dealing with the behavioural aspects of safety and ensuring that the creation of or acceptance of unsafe acts and conditions is understood by all as unacceptable, team members can proactively prevent incidents. Team members will therefore collaborate daily towards behavioural-based safety prevention, discussing issues as the first element of the COM cell, safety first, and capturing concerns on the Safety 3C, a concern, cause and countermeasure problem-solving board. An important point to note at this stage is that while poor safety is often much easier to see in a manufacturing or logistics environment, and the consequences usually immediate and graphic, the office environment harbours some quite serious hazards. Musculoskeletal risks are often obvious in a manual work environment, with the avoidance and reduction of heavy lifting and repetitive tasks a target of much activity. In the office environment, however, there is normally much less ongoing focus on these, with initial or periodic advice on ergonomic seating and working on the computer, but very little day-to-day attention. Long-term issues are therefore cumulative in many offices, without too much concern being shown. More concerning is the fact that more and more research is showing that sedentary lifestyle promoted by office work is extremely harmful to health, with a recent report in the CNN Health publication quoting research on around 8,000 adults, which demonstrated that the sitting time averaged 12.3 hours per day out of an average 16 hours waking day. However, what was striking was that those people who sat for more than 13 hours per day had a twofold increased risk of death than those sitting for less than 11 hours per day. Additionally, those who sat for stretches of less than 30 minutes at a time had a 55% lower risk of death than those who sat for longer than 30 minutes at a stretch, while sitting for longer than 90 minutes at a time produced a doubling of risk compared to those sitting for less than 90 minutes per time. Well-being in the office environment is just as important as it is in the manual work environment, and therefore the invisible threats that exist in the office must be tackled with just as much rigour. In the modern world, we also have many colleagues who are suffering from internal and external pressures, work and family problems, and going through other difficulties. Mental health issues, while given much more prominence and less of a stigma than in earlier times, are still very much a hidden problem for many. It's therefore very important that we create workplaces and team dynamics that promote people's willingness to verbalise their problems, and also the education of our team members to help them in providing support to colleagues. Once again, the consel and daily management can play a significant part in ensuring that the team collaborates and supports each other in a way that breaks down fear and creates a safe environment for people to show their very human frailties and to ask for help. And in the book, what you'll see is an illustration of a very simple emotional state and attendance monitor, where it shows the name of 3 people, whether they're in or out, and a scale of red, amber or green dependent upon their emotional state. The ESAM, Emotional State and Attendance Monitor, is a simple to use tool that allows the team members to confirm their present and current feelings. For some, the emotional side of opening up and admitting when they're not feeling fully happy or engaged with work can be quite difficult. It can bring forward some reactions and sharing that can be unusual for a lot of workplaces. But what I've universally observed is that teams start to trust and support each other much better when it is practiced. Each person selects a token, normally some form of magnetic coloured disc that reflects their current state of emotion. Green, I'm feeling well and I'm on top of my work. Amber, I'm feeling under some pressure and have issues with delivering to plan. Red, I have significant pressure and cannot deliver to plan. They then place this in the in column to identify that they are present. For those 2 members who are not present, the token from yesterday will be positioned in the out column. The team leader can then discuss with the team any emotional issues that are getting in the way, prioritising those people who are red and amber. The person can choose to share with the group, which is often the case and will usually result in a team member's offer of help, while in some cases they will ask to take it offline and the team leader will speak to them privately after the meeting. To demonstrate the power of visual management, in the example in the book, you can easily and quickly see that Joe and Imran are present today and that they're both needing support, with Joe having a serious issue. This provides the team members and team leader with some important information very quickly. What you'll now see in the book is an illustration of a competence matrix showing a ILU situation where it shows the different levels of requirement and the level of competence, again, of 3 people across 5 processes. The competence matrix is another extremely visual and powerful lean tool. It addresses competence management and aims to avoid confusing the hiring of skilled people with ensuring that they are competent to manage and run the specific organisational processes. Many people who are extremely good at their chosen profession or trade and have a fantastic and experienced track record are, metaphorically speaking, thrown into the deep end in a new organisation, department or role. and assumed to be competent to fulfill the requirements with excellence. However, this is often not the case, and in my experience is one of the more serious deficiencies in the majority of organisations, as people do their best to find a way to do their job, but often do so inefficiently and with multiple errors. What the competence matrix does is to capture the most important of the team's processes, activities and tasks, and ensures that the competence level of the team members is benchmarked against the standard work, the competence level required for their role, and any training gaps prioritised, training planned and executed. Unfortunately, in some countries and companies, having competence matrices visible to the team is disallowed by legislative or union requirements. Where it is a legislative issue, there is little that can be done in the short term to resolve the visual management element of the competence matrix. However, where it is a union requirement, the use of piloting with the acquiescence of the union and volunteer workers can help to demonstrate that the competence matrix is a way to enable team members, not to expose them. Second section, performance. And in the book, you'll see an illustration of some performance charts showing what are called run charts and block graphs. The performance section of the ComCell is where the team focuses on how the processes are operating and whether there are any issues with them. The intention is to measure as frequently as is sensible, which in some cases might be hourly for a repetitive, high-frequency process, or daily for a less frequent output process. Nevertheless, the cadence of the measurement ought not be determined by the frequency of the process end output, but by a meaningful leading indicator. For example, if it is a low takt time manufacturing process, then the measuring frequency might be every cycle, as the manufacturing process could be connected to a real-time monitoring system and data available almost instantaneously. Therefore, the performance is managed in real time and the teams will come together for their ComCell meeting on a shift-by-shift basis, and in some cases, even more frequently. In the case of a back office, the data might not be as readily available on a minute-by-minute basis, but it's important that leading indicators are measured on an interval of less than 1 day. For example, perhaps the process in question is order intake, whereby we would want to keep track of the number of orders taken against target on at least a daily basis and not wait until the end of the week or even month. The same can be said for customer payment collections, invoice payments, goods receipting, and other such processes. Many people involved in longer takt time processes, such as innovation, marketing, IT projects, financial planning, accounting, often argue that they can't do daily management due to the longer duration between activities and outcomes. However, this is a red herring, as every day there are activities, leading indicators of outcome that can be planned for and their execution tracked. The outcome of any project, even that of a long-term project, is a result of the accumulation of activities undertaken each day. Failure to manage the short term will result in failure of the longer term. The team will monitor their process performance against targets which, like the measurement, will be set to match a shorter time frame, and to support this they will likely need to be progressive. What I mean by this is a twofold. Firstly, that if you have a target for the end of the year that is an improvement on the baseline, it will need to be set to match the improvement activity that you will undertake to achieve the target. Therefore, if you have a target of 90% of sales quotations to be made in under 24 hours by the end of the year, and your current baseline at the beginning of the year is 75%, your target for January is unlikely or shouldn't be 90%. The activity being done to bridge the gap and the anticipated effect on the performance need to be reconciled. Therefore, a target may be set that will progress throughout the year along with the planned improvements. Nevertheless, this isn't an excuse to back-end load the target, as that should be seen as a warning sign of a hopeful plan rather than a solid, root cause-based plan of countermeasures. The second element of a progressive target is within a period. For example, some processes have a cyclical demand, such as manufacturing processes linked to customer demand, financial processes, month-end close, payments, collections, etc., sales processes such as end-of-month orders. This means that the team might need to set targets that vary per day or week to ensure that they understand when there is a real problem, a real deviation from standard, versus normal variation. Again, this should not be an excuse to set under-ambitious targets, and the team must ensure that the daily targets set will result in an end-of-period, week, month, quarter target being met. In the book, you'll see an illustration now of a 3C, concern, cause, countermeasure chart, where you have the 3 columns of concern, cause and countermeasure, an owner, a due date and a status. The 3 C's stand for concern, cause and countermeasure, and is a first level problem solving tool that the team will use to pinpoint and resolve problems daily. In chapter 4, I'll cover problem solving in more detail, but suffice it to say for now that this is the initial level of problem solving, whereby often the root cause is not fully understood in the short term. The team will identify concerns related to their performance and rapidly determine the actual problem statement, determine how big a problem it is. Where it is a low priority, they may decide to take no current action, whereas if it's a moderate problem, they may decide to take some immediate action, although it might be that they don't get to the root cause and instead implement a rapid countermeasure that only addresses the symptoms and doesn't necessarily address the root cause. However, where the problem is a clear and present issue, they will assign an owner to address it rapidly. Safety issues, of course, fall into the latter category. 3C problem solving is great in enabling the team to rapidly prioritise and solve, either on a short-term symptom-based level or root cause basis, the majority of the team's daily issues. However, for a few of those problems, and especially for those that are escalated to the next level, A3 problem solving will be initiated, which we'll cover in chapter 4, whereby problems are taken by a small team and thoroughly problem solved, truly addressing the root cause of the problem and implementing countermeasures that will make a difference in the longer term. In some cases, the team at the Gemba may put in place some short-term countermeasures to address the symptoms, sometimes called containment actions, and the issues with which they are dealing. While the overall problem is escalated for the long-term solution, this deals with the root cause. The countermeasure in the short term will ensure that standard processes can continue whilst the root cause analysis is being completed. The performance section will normally begin quite simply, and I usually advise teams to get up and running and develop it as they learn, rather than trying to engineer it to perfection before using it. It's important to make the indicators leading ones and on as short an interval as possible to ensure that the team may identify a problem as quickly as possible. The data collected should also be analysed effectively with the use of Pareto, control charts and the like, providing clear and visual indicators for the team members. Fundamentally, the most important thing is that the team members feel ownership of the metrics, and so their involvement in developing the metrics, acquiring the data and analysing it ought to be very high. Section 3, continuous improvement. And what you'll see in the book is an illustration of a Kaizen tracker. The final section of the COM-cell is for continuous improvement and usually begins with a Kaizen tracker, although I have seen many for which the performance 3C has been located there also. There isn't a hard and fast rule on this, but my personal preference is for the 3C to be part of the performance section to psychologically position it as the natural and mandatory outcome of performance issues and their solution. The Kaizen tracker is, as the name suggests, a way of visually tracking the number of Kaizen implemented per team member, usually on a weekly basis, something I intend covering in more detail in chapter 11. A Kaizen is only a Kaizen when it, number 1, solves a problem, 2, results in an improvement to the standard work, and 3, has been implemented and trained to all users. The tracker is used to promote the Kaizen everyday culture by both providing a little peer pressure as team members see others doing so, and by giving an opportunity to share the latest Kaizen that has been implemented across the team members. The numbers are normally updated on a weekly basis with a rolling 4 to 5 weeks of results, encouraging all team members to implement a Kaizen on at least a monthly basis. When discussing numbers, the question of targets is never far away, and giving team members targets for Kaizen is a contentious matter. Some believe that targets are essential to drive behavioural change, whilst others believe that they only encourage low-quality Kaizen implemented to meet the target. My personal approach is to set an informal target based upon an expectation that is then applied on a team basis and aggregated for the department or location. To explain, As part of the deployment, I will always set the expectation and ambition of one Kaizen implemented per person per month. However, I would never expect to see that in anyone's personal performance goals in the HR system. Instead, I would expect that every team or group leader has set this target as part of the ComCell and is training and coaching their team members to this target. As a lean deployment leader, I would set the expectation to the department or location as part of the evidence of lean maturity assessment. I would not only look at the numbers, but also audit, which in lean terms we call a commission-by, and we'll cover in chapter 3, the Kaizen to confirm that the quality was high. The most recent Kaizen will be kept in sleeves on the ComCell for knowledge sharing, information and training purposes, and recognition, for example, the Kaizen of the week or month, are good ways of encouraging participation and having some fun. What you'll see in the book now is an illustration of a commission-by rack. The commission-by rack is integral to the maintenance of daily management. It is the method by which the team ensures that every team member believes in the importance of adherence to processes, problem solving and Kaizen. I deliberately use the term believe rather than a word such as recognise or understand because, as I'll describe in more detail in chapter 3, the activity of commission-by is about building trust among the team members, and the outcome of that trust building is based more in the emotions than logic. We check the processes are working because we care and not to catch people out. The commission-by approach is a layered audit of a process step and is named after a visual Japanese storytelling approach. The name was adopted because the approach uses visual cards to determine which process the auditor should check, the questions to be asked, and the result that is aimed for. The philosophy of the approach is that by doing many of these checks on a small scale, more problems will be solved and increased ownership will be encouraged compared with a traditional audit approach, which typically is a larger in scale activity using external to the department auditors and is usually undertaken in the spirit of poacher and gamekeeper. As with all lean thinking, the commission-by is essentially about localized ownership, short interval control, visual management, and rapid problem solving. Knowledge and best practice sharing are also facilitated by this process and can help to remove the barriers of knowledge protection and the not invented here mindset. The commission-by rack is therefore used daily, part of the leader's standard work to check process steps through asking questions, discovering what problems can be resolved, and improvements made to the standard, thereby encouraging the implementation of Kaizen. The commission-by rack contains several cards with the same questions on each side, but with one side coloured green and one red. The cards start out on one side of the rack, usually on the left, and a card is taken by the checker, who will often select the card based on either a random selection or a predetermined order. They then use the card to ask the right questions of the person currently working on that process step, creating a dialogue around how the process is performing. Where the outcome of the check is that no issues or non-adherences were found, then the card is placed on the other side of the rack, usually the right-hand side, with the colour green showing. Where there is a problem or non-adherence found, the card is placed with the colour red showing, and a 3C item will be raised on the ComCell. Although often, this 3C is quickly closed, as the checker and the checked team members will run the problem solving there and then. As you can imagine, the high frequency and intimacy of these checks creates a real belief in the necessity of adherence to standard, promotion of knowledge sharing, and the development of a Kaizen culture. As was once said to me by a long-standing colleague, Anthony Howarth, commission-by is the glue that holds the lean system together. The last item normally found on the ComCell, although it is essentially the starting point of the ComCell process, is the Terms of Reference document, the TOR, which is the document that describes how the ComCell meeting ought to work and is the standard work document for the meeting. The terms of reference will be elaborated upon in Chapter 7, but as may be seen in the example in this chapter, it identifies the key information about the meeting, such as the day of the meeting, time, format, attendees required, quorum requirement, objectives of the meeting, required inputs for the meeting, the expected outputs, agenda with timings, KPIs of a successful meeting, and finally, the rules or norms of the meeting. The chairperson, which could be the team leader or one of the team members on a rotating basis, will use the TOR to manage the process of the meeting and to ensure that it is effective. A meeting is a step in the overall process of daily management, and in a lean organisation is therefore treated as such, managed effectively to maximise the benefit to the team members in collaborating and performing at a high level. Daily accountability and tier meetings. The Consel is a great tool, and daily management meetings within teams are a great way of improving the alignment and collaboration within teams. To be truly effective, however, two other things are required: daily accountability and tier meetings, which will ensure that alignment and collaboration happens across teams. Daily accountability is essential to the effectiveness of daily management and is essentially what makes daily management different from traditional operational management approaches. Following a plan, do, check, act, PDCA approach, the leader will ensure that their team have a clear plan for the day's work, that the work is performed on time, that the results are as expected, achieving standard, and that problem solving and adjustments are made as necessary. And what you'll see in the book is a visualization of the daily accountability PDCA, where we plan work for the day, we perform the work, we check the results, and then we problem solve and adjust as necessary. This is quite different to a lot of organisations, particularly in the office environment, where work is planned by individuals to suit their own agenda. The performance is inconsistent across team members. Results are checked over longer time intervals, weekly or even monthly, and problem solving is ad hoc and ineffective. Daily accountability is at the core of what the leader needs to be doing, particularly at the team level, group level, and area manager level of leadership, if they are to be effective at delivering operational excellence. In Chapter 14, I will cover more of this accountability, focusing on the most important level of leadership, that of the team level, the first level of leadership. Tier meetings ensure that daily management is used to drive the daily accountability to the right area and at the right level of the organisation. The daily management meetings, using a Consel, interconnect throughout the organisation through the tiering structure to ensure that the problems are escalated and delegated as necessary. The most important thing is that they are undertaken at the Gemba, the place where the value is added, so that it can be quick, fact-based and close to any problems. Tier meetings are a series of daily management meetings that typically run as follows: Tier 1, team leader and team members. Tier 2, group leader and team members plus support staff. Tier 3, area manager and group leaders plus next level support staff. Tier 4, head of site or function and area managers. Whilst the terminology of the job titles may vary in an organisation, it's essential that we get the structure in place that facilitates this tiering, as illustrated in the example. This is regardless of the environment and is certainly not only a manufacturing thing. And what you'll see in the book is an example of a tier structure for the first 4 tiers of an organisation. This also emphasises an important aspect of the organisational design, which is span of control. In the example, you may see that the group leader to team leader ratio is 1:8, meaning that there are 8 team leaders reporting into the group leader. The ratio will be influenced by the amount and complexity of the work involved, as well as the specialism of the work. However, a good rule of thumb is a span of control of around 8, with a range of 6 to 10 being ideal for most situations and congruent with the responsibilities of the leader. However, for longer tack times or in less complicated situations, a span of up to 12 could be acceptable. Where we have ratios lower than 8, we may want to ask whether we have too many leaders, and certainly once we get to less than 6, there is most likely a span of control issue, which will impact alignment and focus. A ratio greater than 10 could impact the leader's ability to provide sufficient attention to their team members, whilst exceeding 12 will certainly do so. The expectations in the tier meetings are: firstly, participants raise any issues that require attention as soon as they are visible. We don't want to see if we can fix the issues before raising it. No problems are hidden. Secondly, support staff should participate at each appropriate tier. We must ensure that we can involve the relevant support staff at the time that the problem is raised. Thirdly, the leader of each tier meeting assigns actions, holds people accountable, and escalates if required. Fourthly, the meeting is sacred and it isn't sacrificed for other meetings. Fifthly, the team are fully engaged and the meetings are chaired and run even when the leader is not available due to sickness, holiday, business travel, etc. And finally, in mature organisations, the chairing of the meeting rotates among the participants, with the leader stepping back into team member status for the meeting, but still attending. Daily management can be hard to get started, particularly in the office environment, where it might be a completely new concept for most participants. There is also the issue of getting hold of data and setting the console up. My advice is not to aim to be perfect before beginning, but instead to get started with a minimal setup and continuously improving Kaizen as you progress and learn. However, you must do it if you are serious about becoming a lean thinking organisation. And the final statement in this chapter is, intellectuals solve problems, geniuses prevent them. Albert Einstein.